Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So once that is known, I can also find out the peak value of the equivalent static force. Basically, the peak value of this equivalent static force, let me denote this as F naught T, which would be nothing but just substitute the peak value of Z here. I can write this as omega n square mx phi x times Z naught. Okay. I also know that Z naught times omega n square is gamma equivalent times A. So this can be also written as, okay, so let me just combine these two factors together and I can write this as gamma equivalent times mx times phi x times A. Okay, so basically what I have done here, I have written omega n square Z naught is equal to A times gamma equivalent. That's all. Okay, so either of these expressions can be used. So the question becomes, once I have the equivalent static force, how do I find out shear force at different location or moment at different location? So let me take the example of that vertical cantilever that we have considered. Saying I'm applying this equivalent static force, okay, which is this. And I want to find out what is my shear force at any distance x. So to do that, okay, let us say I'm first going to, so what would be the shear force at this point? If you take the free body diagram of this, okay, if you take the free body diagram, it would be basically sum of all the forces over this. Okay, similarly, moment here would be, okay, let us say moment here it would be, okay, for each force and the distance that it has from this point x. Okay, so let us see how do we get that. I'm going to define a coordinate, let us say call it y, and I'm going to write down at this location what is my equivalent static force, which is, okay, sorry, this is wrong here, this is not f of t, this is f of x. Okay, so I'm changing this coordinate because I need to find out my shear at a height x. I'm going to say this is my Fy here. Okay, Vb basically would be x, because this limit here is x and this limit here is L. Sum of all these forces between these two would be the shear force at this location. So it would be simply whatever the force here is integrated from x to L. Similarly, moment at x would be, okay, moment at x would be just the moment of these forces. So again, let us integrate it from x to L. Okay, y times, not y, sorry. The lever arm of this force would be this much, which is nothing but y minus x actually, because this would be y minus x times f naught y dy integrated from x to L. Okay, so this is at any distance x, what is the shear force and moment? And if the question is you find out the base shear or moment, so in that you don't have to do anything but simply put x equal to 0. Okay, put x equal to 0, it will give you base shear and moment. Maybe I should remove the subscript b here because that is going to use for base shear. So I will just write it as Vx, Vx and Mx. Okay, base shear I am going to use x equal to 0. Base shear would be 0 to L f of 0 y dy and mb of x would be 0 to L y mvy, sorry, not mvy, fy dy. And we can substitute this expression and find out what are those values. Okay, it's not very difficult to do. Okay, so for example, in this case, I can just take the expression that I had derived here. Let's consider this expression here. Okay, so it would be 0 to L y phi of y dy. And then there's a as well. Sorry, let me just write it here. So this I can write it as a, and then these are the only variable term. Okay, now what is this term here? This term here is nothing but L equivalent, if you remember. Okay, so this would be gamma equivalent times A times L equivalent. Okay. Similarly, I can substitute the same thing and find out here x as 0 to L y y y dy. Okay, and then I can write this as equivalent A L y m of y phi of y and dy. Okay, and this I can define as another parameter if you like. Okay, let us call it L equivalent dash. So this we have already defined, but this is a new parameter. I'm going to call this as L dash equivalent dash. Okay, and then I can get the base moment and shear. Now it might look very complicated if you think it in terms of equation, but remember, finally, this is just for concept that I'm demonstrating here, that in this case, if you once find out the expression for the equivalent static force, shear force would be just sum of all the equivalent static force above this level, and the moment would be moment of all the forces, equivalent static forces above that level. That is all that you need to understand. The rest you can derive, not very difficult. None of the expressions are like actually new expressions that you are seeing for first time. Okay. Is this clear up to this point? Anybody has any doubt?
Sir, there is a lot of lag between what you are saying and what you are writing.
Is everybody facing a similar lag?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It might be due to internet connection at my end. Okay. Sometimes it takes time to stream it. Hopefully it will improve. Okay, but that is something that I cannot do anything. Okay, so if you're finding it difficult this time, let us see it. Hopefully it comes better during the recording, because it records at my end and not what is being displayed at your end. So if you miss something, then do try to go through the recording. Okay. Okay. So these are the peak responses subject to earthquake excitation. Now, instead of earthquake excitation, okay, if it's any general excitation, okay, if any general excitation is given to you, in which the force on the right hand side is actually not minus m times ut, okay, but some other, not ut, but ugt, but some other expression, then what do you do? So what I'm basically saying, if the expression becomes of this form. Okay. So for any general excitation PT, if it is given, okay, let me write slowly here. Okay. So let us say this is P equivalent of T. So then what is the P equivalent of T? This P equivalent of T for earthquake excitation, we found out it came out as L equivalent times UG of T. Okay. But if a general excitation is given, this P equivalent T is nothing but whatever the PT function that is given to you, okay, times the phi x times the dx integrated over the whole length. That okay. And I should not say just pt because now it would be a function of x as well. So I will write it as p of x and t. Okay, and here also I will write it as p of x and t. So the same expression was for earthquake excitation, remember, it was minus L equivalent times UG of T, where L equivalent was, so let me just write it as 0 to L mx times phi x times dx, and this whole thing times UG double dot T. And if you like, you can combine this with the mx here and write it like, okay. And you can call this as equivalent of xt, which is similar to here. Rest of the term remains same. Okay, and this is the similar analogy from what we did for in the previous chapters. Okay, so if a general excitation is given, to find out the equivalent force that is being applied on the structure, okay, you find out the equivalent force something as this. Okay, is this clear to all of you? Okay, if this is clear, what we are going to do, okay, we are going to solve the example we have basically taken for deriving the peak earthquake excitation. So let us do this example, and the whole procedure that we have done would become clear to you, basically what we are trying to achieve here. So basically I have a chimney here, okay, which is clamped at the bottom and free at the top. Okay, and this is the section of this chimney is like a hollow cylinder. Okay, so this chimney can be approximated as a cantilever beam. Okay, and then you have an earthquake excitation. Okay, and let me first write down the overall. The overall height of this chimney is 200 meters. Okay, the outer diameter of this chimney is 16 meter and the thickness is 1 meter. Okay, and basically what you need to find out, what is the response, or what is the, let us say, subject to ground excitation for which the response spectra, I'll give it to you. Okay, what is basically the deformation uxt, or instead of uxt, let me just say what is the peak deformation u naught x. Okay, what is the base shear uxt, again not uxt, let us just say base shear at the bottom. Okay, so these two quantities you need to find out for me. The damping for this is given as 5%. Okay, the E value is given as 25,000 MPa. Okay, the rest of the quantities you can calculate. Okay, density of concrete is 2400 kg per meter cube. You can assume that. Okay, and I'll also give you how the moment of inertia is calculated. It is actually pi by 64 times d2 to the power 4 minus d1 to the power 4. Okay, so find out, derive the expressions. Okay, and find out what is the peak response u naught of x and vb of the base shear at the bottom. Okay, so take some time and solve this problem. I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to copy here the response spectra. Okay, just give me a second here. till now you find out other parameters. For that you don't need the response spectra. First you find out the M equivalent, then you find out the K equivalent, and then you find out the frequency. Okay. Can all of you see the response spectra? So basically the peak response need to determine to this response spectra is scaled to 0.025 G. Remember, this is scaled to 1 G here, PGA. Okay, you would need to scale it to 0.25 Gs, which would basically mean that you would need to multiply with this factor 0.25 G divided by this factor here, which is 1. So basically multiply it with 0.25. Okay. Already derived the expression for K equivalent and M equivalent. So I would suggest you just utilize whatever you have derived for phi 2 of x. Okay, let me just. So the expression that you have derived for phi 2 of x, which was I think 1 minus cos pi x by 2l. So you can utilize this expression here. Okay, all you need to do is to find out what is the E is given to you, what is I, and what is the value of mass per unit length. Okay, and then utilize that expression.
Sir, how to know which shape function is to be used?
Many times you can assume a shape function. Saw that first and second shape function, you used either of these, it did not give you much of a difference, right? Now, if you are asking in terms, problem would specifically tell you whether you need to assume a specific shape function, okay, or whether you need to assume any shape function. If you said that assume, you can assume any shape function, okay. But if you've given that you take only this shape function, then you need to utilize this shape function. Many times what happens, static deflected shape is a good approximation, like for this case. Okay, so you can utilize that shape function if nothing is given to you, the static deflected shape. Okay, if the shape function is not given to you, if it is given to you, then there is no issue. Okay. Like in this case, I am telling you specifically, you just use that phi 2x. Even if you use phi 1x, the answer would be almost same. Only when you go ahead and use phi 3x, your answer would be a little bit different. Okay, let us see, go step by step. Okay, and then we'll see that how do we utilize all those convoluted expressions that we have derived to solve this problem here. Okay, so first thing to find out is that mass per unit length. Okay, and the second thing is the moment of inertia. So mass per unit length, I can find out by multiplying the cross-sectional area with the density, isn't it? Mass per unit length of this would be whatever the cross-sectional area times the density of the concrete. Okay, and that I can find out as pi by 4 times 16 square minus 15 square times 2400 kg per meter cube. Okay, and that comes out to be around 47.12 meters square. Okay, so the mass per unit area is known to me. The second thing is to find out the moment of inertia I. Okay, which I have already told you is pi by, well, if I write in terms of diameter, it would be 64 G24 minus T1 4. Okay, so pi by 64 times 16 to the power 4 minus 7 to the 15 to the 14 to the power 4. This is also 14 here. Okay, not okay. So you can calculate. I have calculated this value and it comes out to be around 0.25 meter 4. Okay, so then I can find out what is EI, which is basically 25,000. Okay, 25,000 MPa. So it would be 25,000 into 10 to the power 6 Newton per meter square, and then times this 1331 times 25. Okay, and you can calculate this. This comes out to be around 3.328 into 10 to the power 13 Newton per meter square. Now I already told you which shape function to use to find out the frequency. If you use the second shape function, we found out omega n for that was 3.66 divided by L square times EI and divided by M, which is the mass per unit length. Okay, and you can substitute those values and it gives you around 1.57 radian per second. So the time period would be 2 pi by omega n, and this is approximately around 4 seconds. Okay, so the 4 second is the time period. Now I'm going to look at this response spectra now to find out the peak value of Z0. Now remember, peak value of Z0 would be whatever the value of gamma equivalent times the D, or I can also write this as A divided by omega n square. But to get that, I first need to find out the gamma equivalent. Okay. So gamma equivalent is nothing but, in this case, I can just integrate the expression which was x or mx times phi x times dx 0 to L divided by M equivalent. And M equivalent I have already found out for this case. It was around 0.23, right? If I remember correctly, it is around, yeah, it is around 0.227 times ml. Okay. So the numerator expression you can integrate and you can see what it's come out to be. This whole expression I've calculated as 1.6. Okay. So that my peak generalized displacement is 1.6 times the A value. Now A value needs to be found out at t equal to 4 seconds. Okay, scaled to 0.25 G. So let us go back to the response spectra. Here I see that when it is between 0.66 and 4.12, then my A as a function of G is 1.8 divided by Tm. So what it is saying that A divided by G is 1.8 divided by Tn. Okay, so 1.8 divided by 4. Okay. Now this is scaled to 1. I need to scale it to 0.25. So I need to multiply this with 0.25 here. Okay. The acceleration would be 1.8, 0.25 divided by 4 times G, which would be 9.806. Okay. And I can substitute it here. Okay. And divided by omega n square. Okay. Which would be 1.57 radian per second, and then substitute this value of A. Okay, once I substitute that, I can get the value of peak generalized displacement, which comes out to be around 71.2 centimeters. Okay, once the peak generalized displacement is known, I can find out the actual deformation, which is a function of x. So actual peak deformation u0 of x, all I need to do is multiply the shape function with the peak generalized displacement. So shape function is cos pi x by 12 times, let me write it here on this side. Okay, so it is 71.2 times this centimeter. So depending upon at what height you are considering, you can substitute the value of x and you can find that out. Okay, that what is the deformation, the peak deformation u0. Okay, so you can find out what is the u0 L or whatever other deformation at other location you want to find out. Okay, now the second step that comes once I have found out the u0 is to find out the base shear. And to find out the base shear, I first need to find out the equivalent static force. Okay. So the equivalent static force, I can find that as, remember the expressions that we have derived. Let me go back to that here. So we can use either of these expressions. We can use either this expression or this expression. Let us use the second expression because it is simpler to use. So it would be gamma equivalent times mx times phi x times a. Okay, now gamma equivalent I already know is 1.6, right? Mx I have already found out. Okay, mass per unit length. Phi x is already known to me, cos pi x by 12. And A is already known to me from here. So we can substitute this value, okay, and we can find out this comes out to be around 199.8 times 1 minus cos pi x by 12 kilonewton per meter. So this is the equivalent static force, okay, to which we are going to find out the response of the system. Okay, let us say it looks like something like this. Okay, so the base shear would be sum of these equivalent static forces. Okay, so for that you don't need to actually integrate it. We have already derived the expression base shear as L equivalent times A times gamma equivalent. Okay, L equivalent I have already found out as 0.227 in this case. No, sorry, it was 0.363 mass per unit length, and then A value I have also find out from here, and then this is 1.6. Okay, so you can multiply this, okay, and find out what is the value of base shear, which I'll give you the final answer so that you can check on your own if you want to do it later. It is around 14,516 kilonewton. Okay, so you saw that a chimney, remember typically we used to have the case where a water head tank used to be there. So the water head mass was so high compared to overall the column of this that we simply approximated this as a total mass to be only this and ignored this mass. However, if you have a chimney in which the mass is distributed, this might not work, which we have been doing so far. So for this case, I could still utilize the single degree of freedom analysis. Only thing is that now I have to utilize the process that we have just described. And this is simply the case. You would have seen, like, brick chimneys, which are like this, might not be a constant cross section. But remember, the formula that we have derived, this is valid for variable mass and variable stiffness as well. So it doesn't need to be a constant as long as you know the variation. Okay, so even a continuous system in which it is not apparent how to get the total mass lumped or how to get the equivalent stiffness, I can still simplify that to a single degree of freedom system to get the final design forces and design moments in the system. Okay, is this clear to all of you? Any doubt in this problem? I hope that with this example, everything, all the process that we have till now described become clear and you don't get lost in the equations. Okay. Let me know if you have any doubt. We can discuss. Okay. If not, then let us end the class here.